This is Mia Lewis, and she's with the Common Cause.
All right, well, first of all, I think it's important to define gerrymandering, and I actually went to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and the definition that they gave was the practice of dividing or arranging a territorial unit into election districts in a way that gives one political party an unfair advantage in elections. And I think it's really important that we emphasize the unfair advantage, because I want everybody to understand that when you draw voting districts, you have to make decisions and you have to be intentional. There's no such thing as random redistricting or just dropping lines down on the map. People have to make decisions, but if you make a decision in order to create a fair map, then that's not gerrymandering. When you make a decision to create an unfair advantage for one political party, that's gerrymandering. And the reason I'm emphasizing that is there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about the meaning of the word gerrymandering. Just drawing something intentional is not gerrymandering. It has to do with the outcome of the map at the end after you've drawn the districts. So gerrymandering is something that's been around since almost the beginning of our republic. And it's done everywhere. It's not a Democratic or Republican thing. Everybody does it. If you have the power to draw the lines, then you are going to try to draw them in your favor. That's just natural. But it is getting worse with increased computing power, etc. So when you look at...
Mia?
Yes?
Is there any way you can turn up your volume?
I actually have it all the way up at the top. Yeah, I've got it all the way up.
Okay.
I can talk just as...
But not as well as I'd like to.
Okay. Well, I will talk as loud as I can. How about that?
Okay.
So, if you look at this diagram, you can see that the population has 30 green dots and 20 purple. And you could divide that so that there's fair representation, where you elect 3 green representatives and 2 purple. But you can also gerrymander it, and you can gerrymander it by cracking or packing. If you look at this one here that says cracked district, you see how the greens have taken just a little bit of purple, and they've put a sprinkling of purple into each district so the purples can never win. And the Greens win all 5 elections there. So you have 5 green districts and 0 purple. But you can also pack districts. You can take the Greens, the purples, if they are in charge of drawing the lines, they could take the Greens and pack them into 2 districts and then put a sprinkling in the other districts, and the purples can actually win. They can come out with 3 representatives, and the Greens only have 2. And that's by packing extra Greens into 2 districts that they essentially forfeit. Can you see how that works there? So that's packing and cracking. Cracking is taking a little bit of your opponent and drowning them in the other side, and packing is packing as many of your opposition as you can into districts that you're going to forfeit but come out ahead in the end. And so we have both packing and cracking in Ohio. In a very Democratic district like the one that I live in Columbus, you have packing. You have the representatives are going to win by 80% or 90%. So a lot of those votes are wasted, as it were. And then in some other areas, you might, because this map was drawn by Republicans as a Republican gerrymander, you might have just a few Democrats sprinkled into each district so that they can never actually elect a representative. So that's packing and cracking. And what it leads to is a big discrepancy between how we vote in statewide elections, like for president or governor or senator, and what ends up at the state house. So in the Ohio House, overall statewide, Republicans won 58.8% of the vote, but they have 68% of the seats. In the Senate, they won 59%, but they have 78.8%. So that's gerrymandering. That's a discrepancy between how people vote and how people end up being elected. And it happens in Democratic states as well. This is an example from New York State. And gerrymandering can be used, this is just my favorite cartoon about gerrymandering. If you've got that crayon, you've got the power. You can choose your voters, and you can leave the rest for everybody else. So what is so bad about gerrymandering? I think you guys know all of the things that are bad about gerrymandering. It creates safe districts and predictable outcomes. Predictable outcomes mean unresponsive elected officials because they know that they can win, and that means disengaged voters. It means the primary is the most important election. If you know who's going to win, if you know a Democrat or a Republican are going to win in November, the only question is who is going to win the primary. And primaries tend to be just to a very small group of people and to the base where the extreme politicians try to outdo each other to win that primary. So we end up with these extreme candidates, and that extreme candidates means extreme elected officials who are out of touch and dysfunctional government. And dysfunctional government doesn't serve anybody. Gerrymandering can also be used to divide communities. This is an example of how gerrymandering can be used to deprive minority voters of the ability to elect a representative. You can divide them so that they can't elect anyone, or you can use redistricting to help people keep communities together and help them have fair representation. So gerrymandering, drawing the lines, having the ability to draw the lines, that's power. That's a lot of power. So I think it's important for us to know that in Ohio, we've been working at trying to fix this problem for a very long time. And in 2015 and in 2018, we thought we had fixed it because we passed laws, they passed by huge margins, that had really good rules to prevent gerrymandering. But the problem was we left it in the hands of politicians, and the politicians ignored the new rules in the Constitution, and they ignored the courts. When the Ohio Supreme Court struck down those maps as unconstitutional gerrymanders, they just drew them the same again. They drew them again just as gerrymandered, just as unfair. And they did that 7 times. And the court struck down the maps 7 times. But the problem was the rules didn't have a mechanism for, all the court could do was say, this is unconstitutional, and send it back to the commission that had drawn the map in the first place. And then the clock ran out, and we had to vote using those unconstitutional maps. So I think that's really important because I want you guys to know that this amendment was written with all of that in mind. This amendment was written by people who had tried very hard to fix the problem in 2015 and 2018. In fact, they tried even before that. There were other measures which didn't pass, but they knew the problem, and they knew the problem was the politicians being in charge, and they knew the problem was the ability of one group to capture the process and kind of hijack the process. And so every single bit in this amendment is written with that knowledge and with the intention of making a process which cannot be captured by any one party. So the solution, I believe, to this problem is to pass the Citizens Not Politicians Amendment. It's going to be on the ballot in November, and it creates a 15-member Citizens Redistricting Commission, which does not allow politicians to participate, politicians, lobbyists, and it requires fair maps that do not favor or disfavor any political party or individual politician. So that is what is so incredibly important, and I want you to read this. I just printed out the amendment itself today, and I was reading through it again, and I want you to read this first paragraph in the section that has Commission internal governance and staff, and it says, all deliberations and actions of the Commission shall be in public meetings, and all actions by the Commission shall require the affirmative vote of at least 9 commissioners, including the vote of at least 2 commissioners affiliated with the first major party, 2 commissioners affiliated with the second major party, and 2 independent commissioners. The whole commission is based on 3 equally powerful groups. The first major party, that's Republicans. The second major party, that's Democrats. And the third group is independents, folks who are not affiliated with either Democrats or Republicans. And everything in the amendment is, as it says here, every single decision has to have 2 affirmative votes from somebody in each of those 3 groups. So I just want to put that forward to you so that you understand that when any group says that this amendment is an attempt by one party to capture the process, that is false, because everything in this amendment is written to make that impossible. So the amendment is written to have many requirements of the maps. They have to comply with the Voting Rights Act. They can't favor or disfavor any political party. They can't take into account incumbent addresses. In other words, they can't be drawn in order to benefit incumbents. And they have to preserve communities of interest. That means groups that come and testify to the commission to say, you know, we want our community to be held together. There are everything in the amendment. If you actually print it out, you'll see that it's very, very, very carefully written, and it's carefully and thoroughly written because we were so very burned the last time around, where we thought we had good rules, and it turned out that the people who were in charge abused those rules and used loopholes in the rules and ignored the rules. And so everything in here is very careful, including everything needing to be public and transparent. There are no meetings that are not open to the public. The public is absolutely allowed to talk to the commission, but only in public. You can't have commissioners who are going to secret meetings of members of the legislature. The people on the commission can't go meet with Matt Huffman or Allison Russo. No, they can't. They can talk to people in public in the commission hearings, but they can't secretly talk to interested parties like politicians. So, and every time that there's a map proposed, there are stipulated amounts of public hearings that are spread out across the state, and the public gets to review the maps before they are adopted. And then I just very briefly want to explain, you know, a great deal of thought went into, well, how can we pick a commission that will be so balanced and so fair? Who is going to pick them? What group of people can we find who will be absolutely unbiased? And that was a question that took a long, long time to answer during the process of creating this amendment. And so, first of all, I want to reiterate that not everyone can be on the commission. People who are not residents of Ohio for 6 years, or who are not registered to vote in Ohio, or who are serving in a partisan position or a candidate for elected office or registered as a lobbyist are not allowed to be on the commission. So about the selection process, as I said, it's a little bit elaborate, but it's elaborate in order to make sure that it's absolutely fair. And it starts out with creating a bipartisan screening panel of retired judges. The bipartisan screening panel is made up of 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, retired judges. Now, how do you choose those? What they do is they take the Democratic members of the ballot board and the Republican members of the ballot board. So here you have the Republican members of the ballot board. There's 2 of them. They are going to pick a pool of 8 retired Republican judges. And the Democrats on the ballot board are going to pick a pool of 8 retired Democratic judges. And then in order to keep it fair, the Democrats pick 2 from the Republicans' pool. And the Republicans pick 2 from the Democrats' pool. So you end up with 4 retired judges, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, who have been picked in this cross manner in order to make it fair. And then what they do is they pick 2 from each group, literally randomly. They put it in a lotto ball and they pick 2 from each group randomly. So now you have 6 commissioners, 2 from each group. Those 6 commissioners pick the remaining 9 commissioners. And again, they have to pick with unanimity. They have to pick with agreement from everyone in the group. And they pick those final 9 members with an eye to demographic and geographic diversity. So it is a complicated process. It starts out with the judges that are cross-picked to make a fair pick so that no one can, slip a dishonest or, bad actor on. And then those guys work on a pool of finalists, 15 from each group. The first 6 are picked, 2 from each group, literally randomly from the 15, and then that group of 6 commissioners work to round out to create the 15 commissioners. And when I say geographic and demographic diversity, I mean it can't be 15 white guys from Cuyahoga County. There has to be some diversity across Ohio's geography, rural, urban, and they're also going to look for skills. Are there people with skills? When the commission is seated, they do have a budget, and the budget is, in the amendment, it is specified to be the same budget as we had during the last cycle. So it's not an unlimited amount of money. It's a specific amount based on what we had in the previous cycle. And they also can hire staff, just as our legislators did when they drew maps. Our legislators were not mapping experts. They did not draw maps themselves. They had staff members who helped them. And that would be the same for the commission. So I think that I will stop there and just see if you guys have any questions. I just wanted to make sure that, I honestly encourage you to read the amendment. It is long, but you will see when you read it that everything in it is done to create a commission that cannot be used and abused by one party. It cannot be hijacked. There has to be affirmative votes from each of the 3 groups for any decision that's made in the commission. And so this is why it is so angering and frustrating and actually quite shocking that the folks who drew those bad maps that were struck down by the court 7 times, the actual gerrymanderers themselves, who want to keep control of the process, the only thing they can say against this amendment is that it does essentially what they did. It would create gerrymandering and it would allow one party to dominate. And that is actually the exact opposite of the truth. I think if you read the amendment, you will see that this is accurate. I hope that that is helpful.